So, hi everyone, and thanks for joining me again on this channel as I interview esteemed British gymnast Amelie Morgan. Now, Amelie was a really prominent junior gymnast and she medalled at both the Junior Europeans and the Youth Olympics. And she's already making her mark on the senior community in her very first few years. And so I'm really excited to speak to her today. So, hi Amelie, and let's just jump right in, right with the basics. Why did you choose gymnastics?
So I started gymnastics when I was 5 with my twin brother, and we just started off with recreational classes. So we didn't do a lot, and it was just to keep active. And straight away, I just fell in love with it, and I enjoyed it so much. I just wanted to be doing it all the time at home, and yeah, just fell in love with it so quickly. And I just knew that's what I wanted to do.
Did it nothing else tempted you? It was always gymnastics.
I think we tried a couple of different sports when I was little. Like I know I did tennis for a bit, but nothing really interested me like gymnastics did. It always kind of grabbed me. So yeah.
And obviously, when you started, people started to notice your talents and you started to be taken really seriously. You had to move away from home in order to train at the academy in Bristol. What was that process like?
It was a crazy process. I know, like not many people make that decision, and obviously that impacted my family a lot. And I am so grateful for everything they've supported me with. Like to move away from my brother and my dad is a big move for everyone, but we've just made it work, and it's been the best decision of my life. I've never regretted it, and yeah, it's helped me so much.
I suppose the benefit of more training, it's going to help your future that your family sort of can see the sort of sacrifice it's making.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think for my parents, they just like to see us happy. And this is like the one thing that's made me the happiest in life. So that, yeah, they're just supportive of everything that goes
And
on.
as you mentioned, so obviously you train a lot. It sort of comes in hand with your sport. Did your schooling ever suffer? Because I know you did homeschooling for a bit, didn't you?
Yeah, so obviously when I moved here, I moved schools. And originally I went to this local school for a little bit, but we soon realized to get the hours in for gym, it made a lot more sense to homeschool. And it wasn't the easiest. It was a big change from going to school, but we made it work and it really did help my gymnastics. So I'm really glad that I got that balance of both school and gym. Just had to manage time well, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you rejoined school, like a local school for A levels, didn't you? Did you?
Yeah, so I'm back at school now for A levels, yeah.
Yeah. So did you find rejoining was difficult, or did you feel you slotted in quite well?
I think at first I know I was really nervous just because not being around people for so long was very weird, but everyone made us feel really welcome. So it didn't take too long to kind of like slot back into the way of school. So yeah.
Do people ever comment on the fact that you're sort of like an elite athlete? Do you ever feel like they're sort of amazed or treat you differently?
Yeah, I definitely think people are very like interested in kind of like, I guess our life's quite different and really busy. And yeah, people are always really like intrigued and interested in like our gym life as well. Cause I guess it's not the every day that you get people that train this much and go to competitions and things. So yeah.
Of course. And in sort of more recent years, a lot of your training and your social life was documented on the children's TV show Gym Stars. So what made you decide to join that program?
Originally, I think they approached the gym, and I never at the time thought that I would be included in that because I was kind of growing, like kind of coming up in the ranks at that time. So it kind of just naturally occurred that I got into the channel. And then I think it's really amazing that they kind of watched us both grow as we improved in gym. So I think it's been amazing that we kind of just like slotted in. It wasn't really like a big deal at the time, and it kind of like grew with us with our career. So yeah.
And when you joined, what was the thing that sort of surprised you the most about how a TV show works and just being on one?
Um, I know at first it felt so weird to like watch the programs back and see yourself on the TV because it's definitely not something you see all the time. And I know I found it really hard to watch myself at first. So I definitely say that's one of the weirdest things.
Definitely. And of course, so many sort of young gymnasts watch it. What's the reaction been like when you get to before lockdown, when you're able to meet them and sort of they tell you about how you've inspired them?
I think until you meet them face to face, you don't really realize what impact you have on the younger generation of gymnasts. And that's one of the biggest things that keeps my love for the sport, knowing how many people are watching and supporting me. And it's just amazing to have that support and know that people watch you and look up to you. So it's an amazing feeling.
When you were in that position, was there anyone who was sort of your idol that you might be sort of younger people now?
I think when I was younger, I used to look up to all the GB gymnasts. I looked to the whole team, and I'd say that more local because that was kind of what I could aspire to be like. But I also know I always watch the American gymnasts as well because they're just like that league above, and they were always amazing to watch as well.
And so you were a really successful junior gymnast, but in 2019, you had to make the transition to a senior gymnast when you got to the age of 16. So what was that transition like, the whole process?
I feel like the transition was actually a lot smoother than I thought it would be. It definitely was nerve-wracking knowing that I had to step up that level of gymnastics quite a lot to know, like, to compete against those seniors, because it was a big jump. But I think the help of like my coaches and all the support I had, it made that transition a lot easier. And there wasn't too much pressure on it, so I didn't feel too bad with it, and it kind of just naturally worked its way into the senior. So
And
not
of
too
course,
bad.
you've been in the seniors for 3 years now, which is sort of quite a considerable amount of time in gymnastics. So do you feel fully settled in? Is it ever still daunting when you have to go to camps and competitions?
Yeah, I definitely still think it is a little bit daunting, going to all the camps, knowing that there is that pressure of people watching and seeing what you're doing. But I have definitely settled into the senior kind of ranks, and like it's nice to have a team around you of the people that I know now and like are friends with, as opposed to people that I used to look up to and now suddenly competing with them. So it's nice to be friends with them now.
Yeah, it must have been sort of strange at first that these were the people that you sort of watched on TV and then you were in the same training gym together.
Definitely, yeah. So
And
true.
so, like I mentioned before the pandemic, you were sort of one of the youngest in the squad, but the pandemic took a large chunk of time out, and now you're sort of one of the most experienced. So, do you feel like the dynamics changed within the squad and you've got more responsibilities, or has it sort of stayed the same?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It kind of went from me being one of the youngest ones to now suddenly I'm not one of those young ones coming up anymore. And it seemed like it happened so quickly, but I definitely think now having more of the younger ones in the senior ranks, I do feel like I have a bit more responsibility and yeah, yeah, just
Yeah,
because I'm a bit older, I guess.
yeah, of course. And so, when the coronavirus happened and all these lockdowns, how did it impact upon your training? Were you able to train?
Well, obviously we couldn't train in the gym for most of the first lockdown. We were lucky enough to train in the second one and this one now. But there was obviously a good few months where we could only train from home, which obviously no gymnasts ever have that much time off. So it's very daunting looking at that time, not knowing how you're going to get back after. Um, but I think we worked so hard at home. We had Zoom sessions every single day. Um, so I was really pleased with how I kept my fitness and strength. And I didn't think that I would be able to get back as quickly as I could. So it was scary at the time, not knowing and just having the unknown, but it actually worked out quite well.
Yeah, and I guess it was sort of the same for every gymnast, sort of worldwide nearly. But so when you did go back into the gym, I'm sure everything didn't sort of slot in immediately. What were some sort of initial barriers that you faced?
I think just not being on the actual apparatus for so long is quite hard to get back into it. Just things like not being on bars, obviously your hands get quite soft, so you like rip on your hands, and just little things like that. It just takes a lot of time to kind of get back into the swing of things and remember how you do all your elements and skills and things.
And of course, you're in quite a fortunate position as an elite gymnast that you've been able to train through these sort of last two lockdowns. But what would you say to sort of younger gymnasts who've been out of the gym for such a long period of time now, and maybe younger athletes in general?
I would just say not to panic. I think as long as you're working hard at home, that's all you can do. And when you get back, you have that muscle memory. You're not going to forget how to do things. And it might take a little bit of time, but you're always going to get back into that position. And you shouldn't worry about losing skills because at the end of the day, everyone is in the same position. So you're not going to be alone. And I think that's one of the best things, that you will have a whole team of people that are in the exact same position and you're not going to have to go through it by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you had your first controlled competition at the GB squad last weekend. How did that go? And are you still on track for sort of all your aims this year?
Yeah, so I think it went a lot better than I had imagined. I wasn't the most prepared for it, being quite early on in the year, and we haven't had too much time to get back. I actually had COVID at the beginning of the year, so I had to take a little bit of time out for that. So I was really pleased. I came out with a clean competition and did what I needed to do. Obviously, I've got to add a few more improvements and things before the next trial, but yeah, feeling in a quite good position.
Of course, because the Olympics is sort of such a momentous event for gymnastics, you have more trial competitions. Do you find that process daunting because it's quite different?
It definitely is different to what we've done before, but I think at the same time, it's quite nice knowing that you have multiple opportunities to show yourself and it's not just riding on one. And obviously, they're all important individually, but it's nice to know that you do have multiple occasions to kind of like show your performance and show what you can do. So, yeah, a mix of both.
Definitely. And we've just mentioned there that you're aiming for the Olympics, sort of like the pinnacle of sport. What would it mean for you if you were able to get in that team?
It would absolutely mean the world. I think it's every gymnast's dream to go to the Olympics. And when I was little, I never had my mind set on the Olympics. Obviously, it was something that I always watched and aspired to be like them, but I had never kind of had that on my radar or something that I thought I'd be able to do. So now I'm in this position where I'm going to Olympic trials and things. It just seems so surreal to me. So yeah, to have that opportunity, it would just be the best thing in the world. Yeah.
And now, of course, even if you did make the Olympics, which would be extraordinary, you have to move on for life afterwards. And you've committed to going to Berkeley in California for your studies. Why did you choose America for your university experience, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah, definitely. I think gymnastics is such a major part of my life, but I always also have to think about what's to come after that. Um, and in America, they actually give scholarships, athletic ones as well. So I'd be able to carry on my gymnastics career and study at the same time, which is, I think, a really nice way to kind of go transition from elite to college gym, which is a slightly different level. So I can continue my love of the sport and get free education at the same time. So it's a win-win for me, really.
Absolutely. And just finally, you've obviously gymnastics has been such a huge part of your life. You have to train so much. Can you ever see your life without gymnastics, or do you think it will sort of always be there in either in the foreground or in the background?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's hard to see it without gymnastics because I've been doing it for so many years. But I know there obviously will be a point where I won't carry on anymore. But I know for the rest of my life, I will always continue to follow gymnastics, watch it. I just enjoy the sport and watching everyone kind of come up the ranks and see how people are improving. So I'll definitely stay involved in the sport. Um, Whether it's doing it or not, I don't know, but I will definitely stay involved.
And just to end the interview, what piece of advice has either stuck with you throughout your whole career, or what advice would you give in general to sort of any younger athlete?
I think the main thing for me, like how I approach gymnastics, is to always be as positive as you can. And I'd say I'm quite a happy person most of the time. And I think that is the best way to be because it's a tough sport. It really is. So you always have to see kind of the glass is half full side of it because there are always going to be hard days, but you just have to keep looking at that positive side and reaching for those good days. And I think that's what keeps me going. So that's what I'd say.
Thank you so much, Amelie. Hopefully, any aspiring gymnast watching have learned something from you or your journey. And of course, best of luck for the upcoming Olympic trials.
Thank you.